So, like I told you, it's a very important subject. We talk a lot with our entrepreneurs, and especially because we are in an industry where, if you want to achieve anything, there is no secret at all. You have to work really, really, really hard. Like, it's one of the most difficult thing to learn about startup is how much amount of work you have to invest inside your startup to achieve anything. And you can meet anyone in the startup industry that is successful. You can learn about their pattern, you can learn about their difference. Some people will tell you you have to fundraise, some people will tell you you don't have to fundraise, some people will tell you you need a big team, some people will tell you you need to keep your team small, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there is a lot of debate and a lot of different things inside the startup industry, but there is something everyone agree on, that you have to work really, really, really hard. And to a point where most of us tend to forget that working that hard can be really dangerous. Dangerous for your personal life, dangerous for your health. There is a lot of burnout in this industry. There is a lot of people that get depressed. There is a lot of cost of being an entrepreneur. But the problem is that these costs come with the job. Like, I don't expect that with this talk you will have the magical theory to avoid that, because there is no magical way to avoid that. You can sleep well, eat well, and exercise a little, but so the workshop will be done. But what I want to do more is that I want to make you understand how the no life and no balance thing can be manageable. Because you have to understand that by definition, being an entrepreneur is a very temporary thing. It's not for life. Of course, you can have a company for life, you can be an entrepreneur for life, but starting something by definition is at the beginning, and the amount of energy you have to understand. So the first thing you have to understand as an entrepreneur is that there is stage in your life. There is steps. You cannot see your life as a complete continuum where you will do exactly the same thing every day for all your life. If I was working the same amount of work today that I'm putting in the family right now, and if I was doing that for the last 15 years, I will be dead. Like, you cannot be all your life starting every day at 8, finishing every day at midnight, because that's basically what happened when you are in growth, and working 7 days a week without holidays for 10 years. You can maybe do that for 2 years, 3 years. Some of us do that for 5 years, but for sure, you cannot do that for your life. And so the important thing is that you have to understand that as an entrepreneur, you have to be very strategic about how you balance things and how you manage on the long run this balance. So instead of telling yourself that you will find a balance in your work and your life, you have to tell yourself, in your work life, you have to tell yourself that you will find a balance on the general path of life. And if you take my concrete example, before doing the family, I took literally 3 years of holiday. And 3 years of holiday, it's nice. Like, you travel, you eat well, you sleep a lot. I don't know how much sleeping I took during this time. But you need that. You need in between to have this kind of very long pause. Because if not, there is no moment where you can connect with the important thing in your life. And to give you a very shocking way of understanding that there is no balance, you can tell yourself that there is 5 basic elements that define the life of everyone. So people are defined by their work, their family, their friends, their hobbies, and everything else that cannot be categorized. You want to be an entrepreneur? Pick 2 and forget everything else, because it doesn't work. You cannot be an entrepreneur and have a work life plus friends plus family plus hobbies and plus doing random things because it's nice. No, it doesn't work that way. What you can do is that you can have works and friends, or works and family, or work and one hobby. But mixing everything in 24 hours doesn't fit. And in that case, time is not an illusion. Like the amount of time you have during the day is by definition limited to something very biological. So because you need to sleep and eat every day, the amount of hours that is available will be between 12 hours for the biggest sleepers. And we are so unequal on that. And some people like me sleeping 4 or 5 hours will have a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you need to rest every day. You need to eat every day. You need to recharge every day. So the amount of energy you have available and the amount of free time is not extendable. And you cannot hope that your startup will be successful if you don't put inside work a huge, huge, huge amount of energy. And there is a physics law that explains that. You know, more something is heavy, and more you need energy to push it. And as an entrepreneur, you can see that as a very basic law of entrepreneurship. More what you try to do is ambitious, and more you will face challenge, resistance, a huge resistance to change that will need from you a very, very hard push. And that's what makes entrepreneurship so difficult, is that everyone thinks when they start a company that everybody out there are waiting for them. You know, it's a child syndrome that every entrepreneur have for between 3 months to 1 year for the most slow of us. So during this 3 months or 1 year, you will have this illusion that because you are launching something, everybody will be excited. And then you learn that the only way to get anyone excited about anything is to work an infinite amount of time, to talk to every single person, to always be closing, to always be in a situation where you push so much that it finally breaks. And that is not a joke. Like you cannot be an amateur about that. You have to be very serious. You have to be very professional. And this is why you don't have free time and free space for a lot of things. And you can find little hacks. For example, all my friends have startup. So I can merge work and friend. So I can have work. For example, in my life is around 2 things, work and family. Like I forget friends a long time ago. But I am lucky enough is that I see enough people so I can consider some of the people I work with as friends. But this kind of hack doesn't work a lot of time and it's not easy. And you know, some people can find a way to merge work and hobbies. It's very common. If you tell yourself that 50% of your lifetime will be spent at work and you are looking for a startup idea, just don't look for a project. Look for something you love, because at least you will have spent a lot of time on something you consider as a hobby. When work becomes a hobby, it's one of the best things it can happen to any entrepreneur, because you see, it's very simple. The amount of energy you will put will be double, because you will have 2 in 1. But outside these little tips and little tricks of kind of merging 2 elements, you don't have a lot of room left for this element. But if you look your life as I look my life, meaning that I look to balance all these 5 things on a long period of time and not in the same time, you can understand where I will be in 15 years. I will be mostly taking hobbies and family and friends, because that's what is incredible with entrepreneurship. With entrepreneurship, you can build a level of wealth and you can build a level of personal fortune that gives you the freedom to rebalance your life on your priority. For example, like Paul Graham, the Y Combinator guy, amazed everyone in the Valley because after 10 years of Y Combinator, he said that his time is done. He gave to Sam Altman the CEO title and president title, and he told everyone that now he will take care of his kids. And by the way, like if you read his tweets about his kids, it seems so much fun. But I understand that because now it's his next 10-year focus. And you see, like for 10 years he was focused on YC, and now he's focused on his kids. And one of the funny things, I was listening to an interview of him recently where he said, the most surprising thing is that no one believed me. No one believed me that I just want to take care of my kids. And my wife works, and Sam is doing a great job at YC, so why anyone needs me? And I think that's the right philosophy for being really happy. Is that at every moment of your life, you focus on something important, and you do it at your best, and you don't compromise in kind of a mystical equilibrium that don't exist. So, be sure of something that people, by the way, anyone with a tattoo has a lot of struggle to understand that. And so if you have a tattoo, think about yourself. There is no choice in life that is permanent. Like, people most of the time are really kind of worried of doing a hard choice, a very intense choice, a very concrete choice, because they think that when the choice will be done, it will be forever. But if you look at the reality of life, especially our days, there is nothing that cannot change. You can change your wife or husband. Like, divorce is a very common thing nowadays. And by the way, 50% of marriage are dead in less than 5 years. It shows that people take this feature very seriously. You can change friends. Think about yourself. Do you have the same friends than 10 years ago? It's very uncommon. Like, average friendship in humanity is 8 years. And it makes sense because it's a cycle. You change and people around you don't change in the same way. And so you find people that are more linked to this new way than the previous way. So one of the things is that if you want to be serious about entrepreneurship, you have to understand that there is a balance between making really, really hard, intense choice and the fact that no choice is forever. And so if you are fine with that, if you understand that nothing you do is forever, you are much more in place to do the right thing. But pay attention, because there is nothing worse than a half choice, or even worse, a choice that is made by the others for you. For example, like very concrete example, look everyone that study anything because their parents or family or friends told them that it was the right thing to study. But they don't like it. What happened to them? We all know people like that. Maybe some of you are like that. So what happened to these people? They always struggle in school. Why? Because it's too hard for them to put the amount of work that the school requires, because it doesn't speak to their soul. And that put them in a situation where they cannot do the investment they need to do during that school time. So choice should always be done by yourself and yourself alone. Never think about others. And also, don't do half choice. Like, I see so many people, there is this comics, PhD comics that I love, where in one of them, the guy opened a web agency and say, I do one client, make enough money to launch my project. And on the second comic strip, it's 40 years later, there is 500 employees. And the guy tell him, what was the startup idea we had, seriously? And they end up being totally stuck in this situation because they put them in a situation where they cannot have the choice. So pay attention to the debt you contract. It's not free to have clients. It's not free to have relationship. It's not free to make choice in life and have a job and tell yourself that you take this job because you will do something else. If there is anything you want to do in your life, do it now. Never put tomorrow what you want to do today. Because if you put it at tomorrow, you will contract debt with things on the way. You will contract debt with the virtual step you build, and you will never, never end up doing your dream. And it can cost a lot, because it can cost happiness, it can cost energy, it produces a lot of depression, and it put people in a situation where they think that everything that happened to them is external and not internal. And that's the perfect definition of slavery. You know, you have to keep the freedom inside you and not put the freedom outside, because there is nothing that impedes you to do whatever you want, even if you are poor, even if you are broke. Like, I know that because I start to have friends that have children, and they all tell me the same thing. Oh, I cannot, I was planning to build my company, but you know, now I have a kid, I have to pay for him. And I always reply the same thing. I grew up as a poor kid, and I was very happy. Like, I don't think any kid is looking for rich parents, and I don't think any kid care. And I don't think we are living in a society where basic needs of children are hard to provide for any people that have some skills. So, like this feeling that because you have someone with you, like a kid, and because this feeling puts you in a situation where you will take this decision not because of you, but because of him, it looks like the perfect sacrifice and the perfect reasonable thing to do. But what happened to everyone that do that around me is that the kid finish by feeling it and make you pay twice. Because instead of doing something for free for the kid, you end up doing it at charge. Because you put your dream in balance, or you put your job on hold, or blah, blah, blah. And no one likes that. No one likes to have this kind of interpersonal debt. And you want to have relationships that are debt-free, so you have to be fine with that. The other thing, I can tell you a very personal story about that. Because when I say that, people say, yeah, but you don't have kids, or you don't know. So when my nephew was 12 years old, my brother had an accident, and I need to adopt him. So I adopted a teenager when I was 21 years old. My nephew is a great kid. He's like really smart and really nice. So it has been kind of easy. Everybody was like, oh my God, how you will manage a teenager? And actually it was like the teenager was managing me. Like, this kid is more serious than me. And I remember a very specific moment when I created the family. Because when I created the family, I was living in California. I was making a ton of money as a consultant in holiday because, you know, like when you have some personal traction, it can be easy to sell yourself and your personal brand. I was doing 5,000 euro a day to tell people what they should do. And like, I was charging 5 days of consulting for a slide I was doing in an hour. And I was going on Elance, paying people in India and China to do the slide. And I was producing a ton of slides and selling them for a very high price. So I was making a ton of money. And it was a moment in life where life for us was really nice, because I was bringing him in travel with me. We had this really big house in San Francisco, 5 or 6 bedroom. There was always people at the house. So it was a nice life. When we created the family, all of that had to change. First, because you cannot create a company with a high personal burn rate. That cannot happen. And also because I had no idea if the family will make money one day or not. And tax reason, it's so complicated to bring money from abroad to inside the country when you come back. So it costs so much that you don't really have a personal interest to do that. You prefer to let the money abroad. And so I remember of having this like 5 minutes of regret, because I basically took Ali. Ali was 15 years old, and I told him, Ali, we will go from this 6-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom house in Paris. I will go from having a ton of free time to having no free time at all. I don't know if I will make money, so we have to save. So like everything that is part of your life, like private school, I was paying 60,000 a year for his school in California. 60,000. I don't know what he learned in this fucking school. But he was costing that kind of money. So all of that was like part of the plan. And I told him, like, look, we will do that and we will switch. And if you're uncomfortable with that, let's speak about it. And I'm very lucky, because that kid said, yeah, if you are happy, I'm happy. And we switch. And I think we did it. And when I think about that, I think about all my friends that will never have done that. And I think I have a much better relationship with Ali, because I never paid a half dream or half job because of him. I never made him responsible of that. And I'm talking about a kid that I raised for 7 years until kicking him out last year because 18 it's too old. So I think I have a personal background to stand up behind that. And it's true for everything in your life. Each time you do something for someone else, you end up miserable. It's true with your team, it's true with your family, it's true with everything. Just do the thing that feels right for you, and you can go to the next step. So, why startups are so horrible? It's because it works exactly like a space shuttle. The start takes up all the energy. You cannot get something out of the ground without putting 1,000 or 2,000% of the energy. The other way to see that, you can see it from a very rational wealth creation perspective. Everybody here, you have a personal equation of wealth. So we can draw an equation of saying that's the amount of money you will do as a cumulative money every month all your life. And everybody has a linear function. Some of you have a better delta than others because some of you did better school or have better experience or have better luck. But at the end, all of us, we have this linear function of the money we will make in all our life. What entrepreneurship is about? Entrepreneurship is about taking that linear function and take it with you and push to put it in few years instead of all your life. Most of successful entrepreneurs make more money in few years than what they will ever do in their entire life, and what average people do in thousands of years. But that is not free. That don't come down to the fact that you got an idea and someone bought you. That comes down to the fact that you will work to a level that seems impossible until the time you did it. And you know, the funny thing is that more startup is successful, more you work, and less you imagine it was possible to work that amount. I think I worked pretty a lot in my life, and I never had imagined I can work as much as I'm working right now. If you look my agenda right now, every week I try to delete things or cancel things or blah, and I cannot. And I'm in this, like, you know, I have the feeling sometimes that I live in a wash machine, you know. It just turn, and you are like that. And so you wake up morning and you sleep down. And the funny thing is that you wake up tired and you go to sleep tired. There is no moment where you can really rest. And even weekends don't work because people send you emails, blah, blah, blah. Thanks God, soon it will be illegal. Just kidding. But it's like that. And it's a good thing. It's because you put that amount of energy that maybe at one time in your life you can spend 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, or some of us spend all their life after this first success to never work again. But all of that will not work if you don't have a precise definition of success. And I'm not talking about a number. You know, like, the good thing with Americans is that they all have a number. We call that the fuck you number. It's something in the Valley, you talk with a lot of people, they are like, yeah, what is your fuck you number? And the fuck you number is a number that if someone offers you that number, you will say fuck you to everything and just sell. And I think in Europe we are more uncomfortable of that. First, because we don't really know what money is. So we struggle to imagine a number where we are comfortable. We don't have this education. We don't know what's, you know, financially planning your life means. We are very responsible with our finance in average in Europe. We don't know what debt is. We don't know what leverage is. We don't know, like, we have like this very basic view of money that we make money and save some part of it. Like that's the level of sophistication of most European people. And also because at the end of the day, unfortunately, money don't work for everyone. Like I wish luck to you. I wish you the feeling that money is enough. Because happy are the people that money is enough. Because everything comes down to a very simple fact. You have an input, how much money you make. You have an output, how much energy you should put to make more money. And so your life becomes this very simple system. But whoever you are, whoever you define, you need to have a very concrete definition of what success means to you. And you have to make everyone around you have a very clear view of what it is, what it means, and you have to communicate and articulate that very crystal clear. Because if not, conversation and opportunities and luck are always a struggle. I was talking like 1 hour ago with an entrepreneur that received an acquisition offer. Like, how do you think about an acquisition offer? There is a simple way of thinking about that. You have the feeling way. You like what you do, and you are fine if you don't never make money. And that is great. Like, you know, for some people, the criteria of success is freedom. If freedom is your criteria of success, you should never sell. Because by definition, if you sell, you work for someone else. So just build a business that is profitable enough so you can buy for yourself this level of freedom. For some people, it's PR. Like some people want to get a level of recognition, public recognition, that people say, oh, he's successful because he did A, B, C. That's why fundraising are so common in entrepreneurship, because they are quick win in terms of PR, and everybody can celebrate them, and everybody can get down to a fundraising event. Some people, it's an amount of money. They want enough money to never think about money again. Some people play the Fortune 500. You know what the Fortune 500 game is? It's that every year you look at your rank, and you wonder if you get a better rank or not. There is not a lot of successful people at that game in France, but if you take Bernard Arnault or Xavier Niel, they really played at this game. Like when you make billions a year, why you continue? You don't continue for the money. You continue because you want to show that you are able to be one of the best in the world. By the way, it's a great game by definition, because it's a game that never ends up. And you are playing with people that are so good that the game is always changing every year. Oh, Bill Gates is first. Oh, Carlos Slim is first. Oh, I went from 20 to 15. Yeah, 7 in the face. No, it's like, it never ends. But at least it's a clear criteria of success, and everybody can optimize around you. Let's say you are, I don't know, let's say you are a wealth manager, and you go and see Xavier Niel and tell him, I have a plan for you. I will put your money at no risk, and you get a revenue every month, and you can stop and go on the beach. Like, you would be like, what? I can do that without you. I don't need you for that. But if you go and tell him, I have this very ambitious project, you invest $1 million and I give you $1 billion back, like, that makes sense for him. So you see, people around you optimize in their interaction with you if you are clear about that. And that is not only for the top billionaires, it's also true for very small beginnings. Why? Because you will lose your time. Like, acquisition thing is a very concrete thing. Every startups that get some traction get acquisition call. You should never take them if you don't sell. And I'm serious. Because there is nothing more horrible than someone that takes all this call, and so everyone around him thinks that he wants to sell, and no call never go to the end. Because you don't really want to sell, but you want to see the opportunity. So one of the good ways to manage that is to put a number, a filter number. Say, if you want to talk with me, it's because it's one. I can tell you a story. One of our company defined a number like that. They said, I will sell at that number. And they received so many calls for acquisition. And he was just replying an automatic email saying like the condition of sale he was ready to accept. And it seems nuts until the day someone reply, yes, I agree with the condition. And boom, condition happens. So it's maybe a bit extreme case, but it makes sense. Because you don't want that people around you are unaligned with your own definition of success. People need to understand how you define success, Are you looking for power? Are you looking for money? Are you looking for happiness in your own definition of happiness? Are you looking for glory? Whatever you are looking for, just state it and tell everyone that you are looking for that. One of the problems with most entrepreneurs is the partner for life. Like if you look at where trouble and struggle starts most of the time in a company is around weddings. Because what happens when people get married? They change their perspective about life. And one of the effects of that is that they change that perspective not in the same time than the co-founders. And so having this harsh external view and opinion about a company can make things very complicated. So it's not only about getting married, but it's also when you have parents that understand what you do. Bless the entrepreneurs that have parents that don't get at all what they are doing. Like they are the most happy one. Because like one of the things we saw at the family, each time we have a guy that has parents that are entrepreneurs, like the amount of struggle double. Because they can talk with them. And the problem is that they talk about a reality that don't exist anymore. Because being an entrepreneur 20 years ago in France is not being an entrepreneur now. And that's where like absolutely nonsense conversations start. Because of course you want to listen to them because they are successful. And you tell what they tell you to people that don't live in the same reality, and fights start. So many teams fight between each other because their entourage is not aligned with them. So you have to share, you have to put all these people inside and align with you, and there is two ways of that. There is a wall way, you build a wall and say nothing will pass. And so you stay on the other side of the wall, it's called my personal life. And on the professional side of this wall, nobody should be involved unless it's me. Or you have the merge situation, where you merge with your loved one or your family or your brothers or your sisters or whoever, and you just tell them everything, and you opt to stay aligned. But there is nothing in middle. There is no good strategy in middle. You have to be really radical about that. And also you have to understand that it's your job to build the right storytelling. Because you have to build a storytelling that people can understand around you and people are comfortable with that. I will not say his name, but he will recognize himself. One of our entrepreneurs has an accountant as a wife. So it can seem good, like it can seem like, oh, she will have an expert opinion. But the problem is that she's accountant for very traditional business. So let's imagine you do 5 million in loss the first year. Like it can seem for an accountant the perfect definition of bankruptcy. And it can create trouble at house, really. Because at the beginning, he did not do the job as the right storytelling, explaining how a startup works, like what is different with a traditional company, how investor evaluate his company, blah, 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 blah. So if you want to avoid this kind of path, you have to be sure that your story always makes sense, and consider your family and your entourage as the first journalist of your startup. Because they will tell everyone if things go well or not, and they will be worried or not worried for you. And the last thing you need is to have a very worried entourage around you. The other thing is that if you see your life as steps, you have to understand that you are building a curriculum as an entrepreneur. You know, we always think that curriculum vitae are the thing for employees, but as an entrepreneur, you are building one. Let's say you create a startup and fundraise. You are in the top 10% of entrepreneurs. Let's say you create a startup and fundraise with a tier 1 international VC. You are in the top 1% of entrepreneurs. Let's say you create a startup, fundraise, and sell it. You are in the top 0.1%. And that has an impact on all the future projects you will do. Because second project will be as easy as the first project was well managed and well storytell. So You have to be step by step aware of the risk you are ready to take and always think about what will be the impact on my curriculum. One of the worst things to do is that if you look 99% of failure in startup, they are not elite failure. They are, you know, the kind of failure of two people working in their bedroom, launching something that no one cares about, and 2 years later they go and take back a job. In terms of curriculum, it's horrible because you only have a gap and you can try to explain that you have been an entrepreneur, but if no one sees what you really did for 2 years, like you work on a product that never launched, like that's the most horrible scenario possible. Or you launch something that really don't make sense and nobody cares, or nobody really hate or love. It will be really, really hard to manage the next step. But if you fail hard, like if you really take bold risk and put yourself in a situation where everyone remember that, at least you will have built glory on your curriculum. So don't take that lightly. Like don't think it's better to fail well than to succeed not right. Like small success, no one cares. Big failure makes legends in our industry. So risk is good, failure is great, celebrations are necessary. Recently, I saw on Facebook this very stupid post from a famous Valley entrepreneurs. He said that fundraising should not be celebrated because we don't celebrate a cook for the ingredients of his cooking. So, first thing that can come only from a Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, because obviously they don't know what good food is. And if they know what good food is, they will know that some chefs are celebrated for their ingredients. And you don't have 1 out of 10 chefs that have the luxury of get the supply. Like imagine you get to a restaurant and the guy say, yeah, no, the supplier refused to give me ingredients today, so I cannot cook. I'm sorry, come back next week. No, like everybody gets supply. So this sentence is so stupid because it comes down to this, I will call, let's not be glamorous entrepreneurship philosophy, where you have all these people in the valley now that feel the burn and they are like, yeah, we should back to the real of entrepreneurship. Fundraising is vanity. Yeah, of course, fundraising is vanity. If fundraising means success, there will be much more success. But vanity is good. Vanity is fucking good. Because vanity is what helps you manage the moral on long term. That's what makes a team survive for months after months. Because small celebrations are very, very important. And if there is a failure in the French ecosystem, it's about the celebration right. Nobody do good parties. It's so annoying. Like parties are very important in startups because it shows milestones, it shows steps, it shows that at some point you achieve something. And yes, a fundraising is a nice achievement. Okay, it doesn't mean that it's done. Of course, no one can take the money of investor and go in holidays with it. Everybody knows that. We are not stupid. But having 1 out of 10 people fundraising is a part of the celebration. And the next part is to have a successful company. So, because with this kind of thinking, next step will be, yeah, don't celebrate acquisition because an acquisition is a failure. And don't celebrate partnership because partnership means that you are weak. And don't celebrate being profitable because it means that you take money from your customer. No, okay. So, no, we have to celebrate some things. And there is things that are more important than the others. Personal level. And I want to state that as hard as possible in Europe. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are making profit, or if you fundraise, fucking pay yourself. And if one investor tells you that you should pay yourself only when the company is successful, tell him that you agree and you will do that the day he does the same thing. Okay? So investors fundraise money from people to invest in you. And they take big salary and management fees. So I'm not saying that you have to be irrational about your pay. But you have to put yourself in this personal situation that if the company fails, it's not the end of the days. So don't get in personal debt. Personal debt are horrible, and you should stay as far as possible as an entrepreneur. Never get in personal debt. Never, ever. If you need for saving your company to take a loan, and that loan involves a personal guarantee, don't sign it. Bankrupt and do something else. I'm serious. Because you don't imagine how much it's hard to get back from the land of the debt. And that will be a great movie, by the way. But really, it's like debt is great when you have certainty of future revenue. When you have certainty of future revenue, debt is a leverage. When you don't have certainty of future revenue, debt is the shortest path to poverty. And the poverty you will not come back from, and especially because we don't have Chapter 11 law here. Like at least in US, you can personally bankrupt. It's hard, it's pain, but it can happen. In France, if you are Jérôme Kerviel, you will pay 4 billion in debt for all your life. So like personal debt never get erased, never. So don't get into that and pay yourself the amount of money you need to live. And please, equity doesn't mean equality. Like if you look in a team, for example, at the family, at the founder level, we always pay the founder what they need to live. So of course the guy with kids make more money from us than us for a long time. Because you don't need equality. You need to get a good sense of justice. And if you are co-founders, you have to put yourself in a position where no one take more personal risk. It's not function of the work. It's not function of what happened. It's just function of the personal situation. You want to be co-founder with a guy with 2 kids, you pay for the 2 kids. Because now they become your kids too. That's a real co-founding story. So we have this really weird relationship with money in France, where people are so, like, we hear investors telling entrepreneurs, angel, that when they build a company, they did not pay themselves for 10 years. How the fuck they did? Like, if I don't pay my rent, what do I say? I give equity to the landlords. Like, look, I have an investor, he did not pay himself for 10 years. I'm planning to stay in the apartment for free in 5 years. But if I do an exit, I pay you back, promise. Like, it doesn't make sense. So just pay yourself. And pay yourself to a level where the money is never an issue at the end of the month. So it's very unequal. There is not, like, don't ask me the right number, because that right number is very different. And you have to put yourself in a position where everybody is fine with this number. Your investor, co-founders, blah, blah. But you need to do it well. Be fair. If you understand that your personal life is as much important as your professional life on the long term, try to stay fair with people around you as long as possible, as hard as possible. Because you don't know what the employee will become. You don't know what the intern will become. You don't know what the people will be. You have to see your life on a very, very long tail and a very, very long-term scale. And so stay fair and try to be happy with that. Money is not motivation, but money helps at motivation. And I think that as an entrepreneur, thinking about your work-life balance is as important as thinking to the work-life balance of your employee. So you have to understand that people cannot invest a huge amount of energy in a company if they don't have the concrete feeling to get money back from that. You have different strategies. The most easy and lucky strategy, but not everyone can afford that, is just to pay people above market rate. You know, there is this very strange thing that people give as an advice in startups. They say, because you are a startup, you should pay people less. And I'm telling you, because you are a startup, you should pay people more. Because you are a fucking startup that nobody cares about. So if you want the best people, just pay more. Just pay an amount where people will be like, if they want to go somewhere else, it will represent a loss for them. And if you can achieve that, you can ask a lot. And of course, it's a win-win deal. In exchange of that, you ask a very hard work. If you pay above market rate and people just work like regular employee, It's a really stupid deal. But if you pay above market rate and people do huge effort, it's good. The other way of doing that, if you are not a profitable service company or if you have a lack of cash, is to give equity grant. Give equity grant to everyone. Like even people that usually in France don't get equity grant. Give equity grant to every single employee and try to be generous with equity grant. Because at the end of the day, it's the people inside the company that makes the company works, not only you as a founder. And the kind of balance you try in your life should be replicate to the people inside the company. Making your employee wealthy is one of the best ways to keep them for a very, very long time. It can seem surprising, but it's really what makes. And don't be afraid of killing a good startup. So let me explain you that. By definition, you don't have an infinite amount of time in your life, and you don't have so many try. So one of the worst things that can happen to an entrepreneur is that to have a startup that just works. Like it's horrible. It can seem a luxury. A lot of you here will be happy to only have that, but I assure you, when you reach that, it becomes a jail. Because you are investing your time and your life in something that will never explode. And because I told you it's hard, it doesn't make sense to over-invest in something that cannot go big and that don't go to the sky. So if you are in this situation, just sell. Just find a way to exit in any way and try something again. And don't think that first startup is the right startup. It usually takes a multiple try, a multiple shot, a lot of experience in life before finding the right one. We have this, very journalistic bias of Mark Zuckerberg doing his first startup at 19 years old and building Facebook. That's an outliner. You cannot take strategic and life decision on outliners. Outliners, by definition, are out of any average. So they cannot be a model. So you cannot, it's about, for example, the question of dropouts. Like, do you recommend anyone drop out schools? Of course not. Because dropouts doesn't need the advice of anyone. They just drop out. And if you force someone by your advice to drop out, you will be responsible of his future failure. And you don't want to do that. And so, as an individual, you should really think about what you do and ask yourself, does I'm doing something that really matter? And if not, you should switch as soon as possible because it's too much energy for nothing. And not every problems and personal problems have an answer, and just deal with it. The burnout in the startup industry are very common, and there is only one way to manage them, is to burn more. I know it's really the worst advice you can give, and I'm aware that for some people it's a physical pain, but just burn or quit. There is nothing in middle. Like, you are not in an industry where anyone can take care of you. You don't have a boss. You don't have an external support. Everyone, when you're an entrepreneur, you report to. You report to your employee. You report to your investor. You report to your family. You report to everyone. So I know it sucks, but if you're in a personal situation that is painful, you just need to put yourself more in pain. It really looks like high-level sport. If you look, most of the good champions, they tell you that training is horrible, and most of the time they had the feeling that they will break, and it's because they did not break that they are champion. And you cannot know if you will break or not break until you try. So there is a moment where you want just to stop and to do something else, and that's typically the moment where you have to double down. That's typically the moment where you have to work more, and you put yourself in a position that you get the chance to break or succeed. But you should never decide by yourself because it's too hard. You should wait that the external world decide for you. And I know it can seem crazy, and I know that a lot of people will suffer from that, but no one is forced to do a startup. No one is forced to be an entrepreneur. if you choose the path of being an entrepreneur, you have to understand what you are buying and at which cost. And if you keep like a very disciplined life in terms of sleep, eating, and blah, 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 no stress should kill you. Like, that's a real medical advice. Stress kills when it impacts your personal habits. And so you have to be disciplined about that so you can engage an amount of stress that seems impossible for everyone else. And you will see with time, stress become easy. Because when you get, like, actually it really works like when you fight. I don't know if anyone fight when you was a kid. I fight way too much when I was a kid. But the first time you get kicked, like, it really hurt. So 100 times you are like, yeah, it's just a small kick. So entrepreneurship is a little bit the same. The first time you get kicked, it really hurt. So 1,000 times you're like, yeah, what? Oh, I need to find 200,000 next week. Yeah, sure, no problem. I will. So you want to reach that kind of level. It's not free. It's not for everyone. And I think the real test is this thing about personal life, is because no one is forced to be an entrepreneur. Everyone in entrepreneurship should be really aware of what he's doing. Thank you very much.
Yes. Do you have any personal hacks for, obviously you must spend a lot of time reading on screens, with the screens. For your eyes, you don't have any glasses. What do you do for your eyes?
So you can buy Eddie Watson. That's no, it's a new. It's called Eddie Watson. Yeah. No, there is some glass for that. There is some glass that takes the UV out. Anyone know Eddie Watson here? No, it's not Eddie Watson. What's the brand? I don't remember the brand, but comment? No, but okay, whatever. You will find it's cheap. It comes from Japan. It have been replicated in France as a company, and it helped to not be tired. By definition, like, and to get to a more general question, the good thing with internet is that for any problem like that, you will have ton of personal tips online, and like all the life hackers, blah 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 bullshit. Even if it can seem a little bit weird, they give a lot of practical advice that makes sense. So you can find ton of content like that, and it's exactly like in sports. You should not underestimate the impact we can have on life. So I think it's worth 1 hour or two to find some personal hacks for trouble. But for example, I think my eyes are fucked up because I see less and less. So, so yeah. So I don't know. I'm not the best one. I was just before I was telling Anne-Laure, I don't know why I don't see the slide anymore. Like, is it smaller than usual? And it's not. So you see. Question. Don't be shy. You can. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. One day you will die. So when you look at the odds of succeeding in startup, does it really worth it?
Yeah, I think because it's not the success that is worth it or not, it's the path. And I think even if it looks painful, it's like sports. You know, sports for a lot of people is painful, but for the people that really like sport, they cannot live without this pain. So what I'm saying is that because it's a sport that you have to do for a very, very long time, you have to be smart about how you balance it. You have to be smart about the fact that it's steps. You have to be smart that you should invest more on the short term so you can rest on the long term. And you will not find balance in the first 3 years of your startup, but you can find balance on the lifetime of your startups, and you have multiple phases. But, sorry? If you die, you mean dying personally? Yeah, but that's fine, because you don't know when you will die. Well, you know, Vlagar Moguris, my friend. So all men must die. So you should, like, you know, you should live your life like it's the last day, and by definition, you should do something you like. But there's a lot of things I like. I like to work. I like to eat. I like to travel. I like to be with my family. I like to make new friends. It's just that every day I cannot do these 5 things I like. I just need to pick one. So I pick, for the moment, I pick work. If I die tomorrow, I will die happy. And I think that's very important. because you don't know when you die. So the best way to live that is that you think that you will live a very long time is the best way to live your life like it's the last day. It's not the opposite. Because everybody that try to do a little bit of everything every day end up by doing nothing. You know, the amount of focus you have to put in your startup is exactly the same thing with your personal life. You need to be focused on certain steps.
Hey, at the same time, you say that when it's becoming painful, you should double down. But in the other side, if your startup is not exploding or doesn't reveal potential to explode, you should stop it. So
no, I say if it works, but
if
it's
it works,
not explode, you should do something else. I'm not talking about the case where it doesn't work. When it doesn't work, you have nothing to do than double down. You can separate startup in both categories. Startup that works, startup that don't work yet. When your startup don't work, you can only consider that it's a temporary thing. Because if you consider that it's forever, you should stop, by definition. So the case where you should double down on a personal level is a case where it doesn't work, but it's painful. Because by definition, it means that you don't put enough energy, enough intensity, enough of everything in what you do, and you should do more until it works. But if you end up doing that, and you end up with something that works, but it's not amazing, it's not worth it to keep going with something average that works. So that's the two cases.
okay, thank you.
Hello. What about the first employees of a startup? Because they have always the same problem, but do they have the same solutions?
So employees are not founders, and
Yeah.
and by definition, you have to give them a more short-term perspective. So best case, you can pay people well. That's the best case. Because if you pay people well, you don't have to ask yourself. Because it's part of the deal. You know, a lot of good industry understand that early. Why finance pay 10 times more than everyone? Because they want people that get that deal. They come in a shitty environment with shitty workers and shitty conditions, and they get a ton of money. And so they don't have to complain because there is this money deal. So that's case one. It's not a very common case for startups, but I think if I was in a position to fundraise 2 million euros in first round, and I can hire 10 people on average salary of 3 people above market rate, I will take the 3 people path. It seems weird, but actually works much better than having 10 people average. And when you are not in position where you can afford that because your margins are too low, or your industry don't pay well, or you cannot fundraise a big round, you have to find another way to compensate that. So, of course, mission and purpose is a great thing, because some people have companies that are so sexy, that are so willing to make everyone dream, that it makes sense. But don't fool yourself. Real purpose are uncommon. If you look the 100 top startups in Paris, how many has a real purpose? 5, 6? I will not see 7. So, and maybe 3 of them are here. So, like, where is the purpose at Doctolib? One of the great companies in Paris. Like, I would love to be investor at Doctolib, but where is the purpose? Like, you make people book a doctor. Like, really, do you really think you can take people and say, oh, we have an incredible culture, we make appointment with doctors and change the world? No, this is fucking insane. You make money charging doctors for a service that they should have in Google Doc, but they don't know how to use it, so they pay a ton of money with you, and thanks to that, you can build up a new feature that make more sense, so you can get them captive forever. So how do you solve that? You give big commission to people working to you. And everybody working at Doctolib makes good money, so everybody is happy and it's going fast. So that's the equilibrium. You have money and purpose. More you have purpose, less you can put money. More you have purpose, less you can put money. Less you have purpose, more you have to put money. And if you don't do that, you always pay the bill. Because at one point, everybody will break. And that will be horrible. Like so many startups, get a fake deal with an employee, and they offer very little money and very little purpose. And one day everybody wake up and are like, what the fuck I'm doing here? And everybody leave in the same time, and the company don't survive. So and by the way, I never saw a company like that really succeed, because you don't attract the best people. Because best people are usually kind of aware of that secret deal, purpose money. Question?
So I don't really want to ask this, but I have read a lot about people working in very stressful industries, and startup is one of them. And they will turn to chemical, some drugs.
That's a good question. That's a big trend right now.
The big one is Adderall.
Yeah.
What do you know about this, and how good does it do?
So, so I wish my friend Nicolas Deboc is here. There is a big trend right now of brand enhancement and brand augmentation of capabilities and blah, blah, blah. So here my view. My view is that the first version of every product sucks. So when the first version involves your brand, you should wait version 2 or version 3. A very basic principle. Second thing is that I like my brand, so I don't want to play with it. And until the day it's too hard and it fails, I'm not very passionate about tricking it and hacking it. But I can understand that people do that. I just think that it's totally irresponsible to do that way too early before there is research about the consequence of that. But if you can prove me that it works and it's fine and it makes sense, I will be more than happy to take one. And yeah, I think in the near future, by definition, we'll all need to be smarter. So one way or one other, people will find a way to help us to achieving that. Question?
Hello. I'm reading 2 books at the moment, and they are funny because they present two very different ways of doing entrepreneurship. The first one is the 4 Hours Week. I don't know if I guess you read it. And the other one is the biography of Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, I haven't finished it, but he worked a lot and like crazy, and
we can all agree he's not human. That's
yes, and but the first book is very inspiring. But do you think by working 4 hours a week, it's possible for a startup to succeed?
So, first, a fact. Tim Ferriss works a lot. And it's one of the guys that I saw that works the most. Each time I met Tim Ferriss, he was too busy to do anything else. So that's a joke for someone writing the 4 hours work week. And second is not talking about startups. So let's be clear. I think that lifestyle business are huge, an incredible opportunity. A lot of people should build a lifestyle business instead of doing a startups. And there's a lot of passive income things that are real. And in the near future, internet will have the same opportunity than the guy that opened a nice restaurant and is closed 3 days a week and makes good money. So if it happened offline, it can happen online. And lifestyle business, and I think his book, if you take out the 4 hours work week limit, that is a more kind of a marketing trick, he gave a lot of tips and tools and tricks about how to optimize your work. And any entrepreneur should read that book not with the goal of working 4 hours a week, but more about how to increase the productivity. Because he said a lot of smart things about outsourcing, about supply, demand, about pricing, it gives really a lot of good tips. Now, is it possible to work 4 hours a week and be happy? Yes, like that's true. But in that case, you are not building a startup. You are building a lifestyle, and there is a lot of people that have a good lifestyle and make good money, and it makes sense. And you know, it's not our subject at the family, and I wish that someone one day will open a lifestyle family. The problem is that I don't have, first, I don't have any clue about how to do that, and the problem is that with all this lifestyle thing is very solitary. It's, you don't build something collectively. You build something for yourself. It's very selfish. It works. But by definition, you don't have much to share. So if you go on that path, it's a very personal path. And people do that because they want to pick friends, hobbies, and family as the element much more than work. But they are ready to make less money, and they are happy with the money they make. And about Elon Musk, it's again an outliner. Obviously, there is a lot of, like what I loved in that book is to see how much he thinks differently about most of human things. I don't know if you already read, I don't want to spoil you, but the moment, like who read that book here? The Elon Musk biography? No, guys, seriously, it's really an entertaining book. Like it's like a good movie. It's a super villain meeting a superhero, meeting entrepreneur, meeting businessman, meeting a weird guy, all together. But the moment that I loved the most was when he talked about his children, because in the book he explained that his children are computers, and he understands that his job as a parent was to code them and to build the right operating system. And he talks about all the kind of mechanism design he put in place to influence his children to be the next version of him, and first poor children, like let's say that collectively. But also he really showed that that guy is not a human in the perfect sense of human. Is way above that. And you need some outliners like that. We will not go on Mars with a rational dude. And by the way, like another moment that really shocked me, and shocked me in the sense that I understand, is that he called one employee that was at the clinic because his wife was pregnant and she was get delivered. And he yelled at the guy and fired him because he's not at the office. And what is great about Elon Musk is that anyone doing that will do that in secret, never tell anyone. And he tells that story very candidly. Like, yeah, like the guy has a child and he thinks because he has a child that is born, he cannot come at the office. What the fuck? Where do you think he is? At NASA? So that's why I love that guy, because he's one of the most honest guy about what it costs to build SpaceX. Last week I was with guys that work at Arianespace, and they was like, yeah, we want to replicate SpaceX methodology, blah, blah. So I told them that story about the children. And I say, so, are you going to replicate that as well? And the guy was like so white, like, oh my God, okay, we have no chance of surviving. It's like going in a street fight with your hands, and someone come with a gun, and you're like, oh my God, what I'm doing here. So yeah. But pay attention with lessons of outliners. Outliners are great, but they don't define reality. By definition, outliners build their own reality. So when they write books, it's not to give you advice. It's just to show you that reality can be shaped in a different way. And by the way, Elon Musk is not Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is not Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is not Bill Gates. Because you become one of them not because you get their lesson. You become one of them because you create your lesson. So, and it's, again, it's not for everyone. It's, most of them, by definition, start young to see the world very differently. So that's where I'm always uncomfortable with this book, is that people read them to fake their lesson. You cannot fake the lesson. You are. No, I will not say what I was going to say.
About keeping work-life balance and outsourcing, considering that a CTO, for example, does know how to make specifications, would you advise him to outsource many tasks in order to build more features that are pulled by the users, etc.? And do you know startups that are working and doing a lot of outsourcing on coding?
That's exactly the way I will never ask the question.
Thank you.
No problem. But I will explain you why. There's a Latin proverb about what you just did. It's post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's a thing that we was telling Roman children when they do this kind of mistake of thinking. It says that after a cause, therefore there is not even a consequence. Meaning that for the same cause, you don't have always the same consequence. And it's a principle of science. It's the difference between a causality and just a random correlation. The way you ask the question is to think that the methodology by itself gets the right answer. But if you take the point of outsourcing, some people are good at outsourcing, some people are really bad at outsourcing. And this is why when you look your sample, you have as many startups that succeed with outsourcing than you have companies that not succeed, that succeed without outsourcing. And the element of differentiation is not the methodology, is the people. And because people are different, because people don't have the same, they don't react the same, and they don't get the same result. And so the good way to ask the question is, I should try something and see if it works, and define my KPI of success, and if it works, I should do it more. If it doesn't work, I should stop it. And that try on and fail thing, people don't do it enough. People do benchmarks. We should really do these posters. I really think that benchmark is for losers. Really, like it will be a next poster. When you benchmark yourself, you think that you can compare what you do with what others do, but the problem is that you compare your inside to the outside of others. And by definition, the outside of others are always better than the inside. And you know, it creates this weird situation where everybody benchmark around everybody, and everybody end up doing the mistake that everybody else did. Instead of just thinking, I'm unique, I will do my stuff, and I will do better. You know, in France, we have a good way of thinking about that. Is fucking SNCF. So SNCF every year explain to everyone that 97% of trains arrived on time. And this is a great number. And you know how they know that it's a great number? Because they benchmark themselves. So they benchmark themselves to German train, Italian train, Romanian train, and they see that they are in the top 10%. Okay, they are not at the Dutch band, but they are German. So we know that we cannot be as good as that. So they look at Italian and they say, yeah, we are 2% upper than Italian. And yeah, of course, we are Italian. So we understand. And it's horrible because it doesn't make sense. The truth and the reality of train late in Italy is not the same than train late in France. And this is why people don't react the same way. Italians complain much less about late train than French people will, and German complain less than Italian and French together. So what happened is that French executive, what they tell the people, they tell them, you know what, everybody outside lie, we do a very good job, you should be proud of yourself, because 3% is not a lot. Okay, so now let's look at the reality. 3% of train in France represent 10 times more train than 1% in Germany or Italy, because we have much more train line. So if you compare percent, you compare reality that are very different. 3% of train late means millions of trends that are late. So you can benchmark yourself as much as you can. You will not have a story to tell to all the people that are late, and you will not have a concrete story to tell. If SNCF was serious, what they will do? They will talk in absolute numbers and not percentage. And they will take the absolute numbers and tell every employee, whatever happened, every year that number will decrease. And we will do our best. Of course, we cannot do 100%. But what we can do is that we can show our best effort to do every year better, because we cannot be in fight against our user. Because what is the situation of this benchmark? The benchmark gives a feeling to the employee that they do it right, and people outside are stupid politicians that don't like them for marketing reasons, and they need pedagogy. And when you start to do that, it ends up with a fight between your users and the executive. And in this kind of fight, users always win. Startups is exactly the same thing. You should not think like, you know, some of my startups is like, oh, I'm doing 10% conversion rate. Is it good or bad compared to other startups as a family? So if I know them from a long time, I tell them the truth. You should not think like that. You should try to optimize your conversion rate every week, and you should be obsessed about improving it every week, and you will see which number you end up with. And when I don't know them from a long time, or I feel that they are not this kind of people, I lie. I say, yeah, average conversion rate is 60%, so you are far. And they're like, 60? Yeah, 60%. And so by magic, because they are benchmarking themselves, they increase because they are so worried to be different. But if you are driven by social proof of others, you cannot be a good entrepreneur. Like, the only way to be a good entrepreneur is to be obsessed about doing better every week. And so, to get back to your example, to your question of outsourcing, you should just try and try to do better every week and see if it works for you or not, if you are this kind of person or not, and just try to find the best optimization about who you are. And various things like, various things that are so against your culture that it doesn't make sense. For example, Star of Service, one of our companies that uses the most outsourcing. They have 120 employees, 110 of them, they never met them. It's outside supplier around the world. You imagine running a company with 110 people working with you that you never met. It's like so weird, but it works for them. Why? Because they are not looking for perfection. They are looking for things that works. And if you look at Algolia, they cannot even use an outsider to do a review of a blog post, because they are so into perfection as person that they will not sleep if they have the feeling that something did not do good or at the best. So you see, it comes down to personality. And that's why you should optimize around that, because the good thing is that when you optimize around that, you optimize your company and yourself. Last question.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. My question is, would you have a book recommendation for the top 3 of books that you would recommend?
I'm sorry, I'm so bad at that. No, I don't know. I don't know the title of the books I read. Like, I don't know the title of the movies I watch. No, there is a book. No, recently there is a book. Okay, one recommendation.
Okay.
That everyone should read. It's have been written by Saul Atkinson. It's a very no, sorry, sorry. Saul Alinsky. Atkinson is Saul Atkinson is our lawyer. Saul Alinsky. It's called Rules for Radicals. It's a book that I've been writing in 1954 about how to organize a community campaign for black rights, basically. Obama read that book in 2005 and get elected as a president in 2008, applying that book. It's his favorite book. It's incredible because that book have been written for internet before internet even exists. And every lesson in this book can be applied in a startup. And I think it's one of the best books for entrepreneurs that is not about entrepreneurship by definition. But it will give you a huge edge. It's really, really interesting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Que l'enfant